open-ended, so to speak, where it's not closed off to a couple of people. It's essentially anybody that the superintendent or their designee says has a relevant need for access will be able to get a login and access that information themselves. So the next step would be to inform those network leaders, hopefully get them their access, get them familiarized, and then help them roll that out to their respective campuses.
So is there an expectation that on August 13th, this system is up and running?
I would say that yes, there is the expectation that the system is up and running and that we are able to get into there and see relevant, useful information.
Just from getting into it, President Martinez, just last week at the tail end of the week, it's a big monster. And it's a hub, basically. This is going to serve as a hub of information. Everything else, business will go on as usual with the intruder audits and all our busyness that's going on. This is just going to serve as a hub of information. But like he said, it also has several different resources that we can tap into. So once the train-the-trainer is done and we get eyes on that, then we'll communicate with Patty, with Jaime, and Sean on when's kind of that best time to roll out with some dates for staff and campus leadership so that everybody's on the same page. Because they're going to have an active role in this as well, them inputting the data. And basically, it's going to help administration maybe cut down on some time when they don't necessarily need to do it. They can have a designee put it in, and we don't have to rely on paper documentation. So that way, if the auditor shows up and no one's there, he can pull it up and says, yes, it has been submitted. They are good. I can move on to my next steps.
Since this has been a couple of years already, we've implemented safety in our schools. Pretty much we haven't had any problems, right, in the last year or so, security-wise in our district?
No, sir. Nothing major, nothing that's been critical life safety threat within the campus. No, sir.
I got a question. So this is all for the mandatory auditing process, right? It's mandated by the state. Are you also able to put the district exercises in there as well to build that database for y'all? Because we do more than what's mandated in the state.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, and thank you for being here once again. They're our faithful parents that attend our meetings. But yes, you know that we always try to, what's the standard, and we go well beyond that, and we push those barriers, right? So this will be another piece for us that, and we're already being contacted by some of the other districts, like, hey, what are y'all doing it? What are y'all doing it? How are you doing it? So under his leadership, Michael Mignosa, he's going to stay on top of this, and he's going to figure this out. And once he has a good navigation of it, we'll train that up, and then we'll get with senior leadership on the campus side so that we make sure it goes out as one message and make sure everybody's on the same page.
So many of these were safety campus audits or pieces of information that we have historically collected, but instead of saying put it on the SharePoint, upload this to this particular website, it's just a way to take all of that safety information and put it in one place.
Yeah, the project management system.
and I think it will help expedite all around, both for the state, but also for the people who are internally also monitoring the schools.
But I think you do bring up a good point. How do we also add all the other things?
Yes.
That our data is important.
That'll make you look better to the state.
Yeah.
Well, and it's going to be a piece on whether they give us those options, right? If some of them may live within the columns of breakdowns that they have, where we can put some of our data, but that'll be a conversation we have with Johnny Gonzalez, who's spearheading this from TEA, on is there additional information that we can, input or upload that we are doing that may be beneficial, that they say, hey, this is a good thing we should share with others. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. I think the first couple of weeks with the database, it's going to be a cleanup process. I was sharing with Patty over the weekend that we had schools on there that were from Fort Worth that don't belong to SAISD. So there's going to be some vetting and cleaning up of the system and the information that's there before we push all this out. And we're going to work closely with Teresa Adabasso's team on the data on who is our students and what campuses do belong to us.
And on what Chief was saying, that's not us telling them, hey, we have these campuses that don't exist. Again, it's a completely new system, massive. Of course, there's going to be hiccups here and there. So there is also on the TEA side, they are straightening out a few things to make sure that there's factual, correct information in there. So it's going to be, us and them working hand in hand to just get the kinks ironed out and get rolling with it. Any other questions on Sentinel? Again, please keep in mind, this is very preliminary information. After the 31st, I'm sure I will know so much more. So any questions you have, feel free to forward them towards me, and I'll get an answer to you as quickly as I can. All right. So if no other questions on Sentinel specifically, we're going to go ahead and jump back to the top, so to speak, and get through the rest of our agenda. Excuse me.
I got you.
Okay.
Well, you got the volume.
Give me 1 second. Let me get it back on the board. There are paper copies, though, in case you want to grab one in the front. Okay. So again, as I said earlier, thank you all for being here. I know very busy. I appreciate you being here. It's a tremendous effort that we're undertaking here. It requires all of us. Safety is everybody's job. So we're here to tell you really what's going on within the district, what initiatives we're trying to push forward, progress we're trying to make, and then throughout this, but also at the end, definitely we want you as a district professional or as a parent or an educator, we want your feedback so we can better guide our decisions going forward. So I'd like to open up with talking about some grant opportunities that the district has come across. As you may already know, we are still operating under the formula grant, which was a safety grant that was announced for the 22 to 25 time period. We're doing a lot of updates, a lot of progress with that. However, more recently, it was announced that the SAFE Cycle 2, which is the Security and Facilities Enhancement Grant, that the district did receive an additional amount of approximately $1.18 million. So that was just recently announced within the past week or so, and that'll go towards those school standard minimums, which are things such as our panic alarm technology, which we've already implemented, improved fencing, improving our windows, doors, things of that nature to make sure we have good, strong, safe physical structures for students and staff. The second portion has not been announced, but we are actively pursuing a Department of Justice grant. That amount, I believe, is for about $500,000,
Yes,
Chief.
sir.
And that has a much broader range than the TEA, than the formula grant and the Cycle 2 does. Those are kind of constrained on what you can spend them on as far as very specific items. This Department of Justice grant, from what I understand, is much more broad, and the district, we expect to receive it, but once we receive it, we can tweak it to what we feel would best suit us here on our campuses and facilities. Our next portion is going to be our safety and security assessment teams. If you'll see here, there's a few bullet points underneath, the first one of which is our improved fencing initiative continues to progress. I know I just mentioned that we're seeking increased or improved fencing, and what that is there's a new state mandate for all, well, not for all, but for secure area fencing to be either 6 feet if it has anti-scaling features or 8 feet if it does not have those features. There are several campuses where we've identified that they could greatly benefit from increasing the height of that fencing based on activity around the campus, some potential hazards that may come into the campus and not so much that are within the campus itself. So we've got a couple of projects that have been approved. As far as I understand, they've been moved forward to the next step to begin installation. So we're expecting to hear back on that shortly as far as getting some really sturdy, some improved fencing in a couple of areas where we really need it. And of course, we'll continue to evaluate going forward absolutely into the new school year with some of the rearrangements that we've had. Some campuses, for example, maybe having the very young children that they did not have before. We'll reevaluate and see what are the specific needs and concerns there to make sure that we're protecting all students to the best of our abilities. We also are exploring.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Mendoza, sorry
Yes,
to
go
cut
ahead.
off on that.
Absolutely.
With the fencing, are y'all gonna be starting on certain campuses or doing certain grade levels?
So it's gonna be by campus. What it is, it's mostly campuses that are not, or it's gonna be campuses that are not under bond work, because that bond is really a holistic. It addresses the campus as a whole. So they're gonna get their improvements through their own independent, already identified funding source. This is for those that were not on bond project that don't have that separate funding source.
Thank you, sir.
Does that answer